Welcome, viewers, to Bodhi Unified Flow. Here, we simplify complexity and amplify performance. Today, we're jumping right into the second part of our explainer. The lean revolution, engineering efficiency from the assembly line to the job site. Specifically, we're pitting the mass production era right up against the Jidoka concept. We're unpacking a massive paradigm shift here, moving away from the highly rigid mechanical world of Henry Ford and into the incredibly intelligent and adaptable Japanese concept of Jidoka. Here's exactly how we'll navigate through this. We'll start with the mass production era and look at its limits. Then we'll introduce Jidoka and its essential human touch. After that, we'll compare Ford's system directly against Toyota's, translate all of this to modern construction, and then wrap things up. So what's in this for you? By the end of this explainer, you're going to clearly grasp the mechanics behind Ford's continuous assembly system, and you'll deeply understand the human-centric philosophy of Jidoka. You'll see why the shift to built-in quality literally changed everything. And most importantly, you'll see exactly how these historic innovations apply directly to complex, modern project management. To give us some context, let's trace the chronology of modern production theory. The early 20th century was absolutely dominated by scientific, standardized work analysis. But the literal game changer, that hits in 1913, when Henry Ford scaled these concepts up at his massive Rouge River complex. Fast forward past decades of statistical quality control, and we arrive at the massive post-World War II innovations of just-in-time and built-in quality. Now, picture December 1st, 1913. Ford introduces the very first moving, continuous flow assembly line at the Highland Park plant. But do you know where his inspiration actually came from? It was the meatpacking houses of Chicago. Ford watched animals moving along overhead trolleys to be systematically disassembled, and he just thought, well, what if I reversed the sequence? He basically engineered a way to build complex machinery piece by piece, bringing the work directly to the worker. And the speed of that work? Exactly 6 feet per minute. That was the rigid pace of the mechanical conveyor belt. By bringing the product right to stationary workers rather than making them work all over a factory floor, Ford eliminated an immense amount of wasted movement. But make no mistake about it, that belt completely dictated the speed of human labor. 6 feet every single minute. This strict pacing built a completely new reality. Before Ford came along, traditional manufacturing relied on bespoke, stationary assembly done by really highly skilled craftsmen. It was highly customized, but man, it was slow. Ford obliterated that model. He replaced it with a perpetual mechanical conveyor system utilizing standardized interchangeable parts. It was an absolute leap forward in economies of scale. However, this extreme structural efficiency carried some incredibly heavy human costs. This hyperdivision of labor transformed workers into specialized cogs. They were stuck executing highly repetitive, monotonous steps under incredibly strict timing constraints. As you can imagine, this severe repetition induced massive physical and cognitive fatigue. It totally stripped away the creativity of the craftsman and generated deep, systemic labor friction. Humans were essentially treated as mere extensions of the machinery. So here's the crucial point. While mass production completely changed the world, it certainly wasn't invincible. Eventually, big macro forces started breaking the Fordist system apart. You see, mass production needs a very stable environment to work, but consumer markets were getting saturated and fragmented. People wanted variety, not just a black Model T. Furthermore, every single ounce of efficiency under the old Taylorist model had already been squeezed out, so productivity and profit growth inevitably started to slow down. Which brings us to a really fascinating geographic and historical pivot. Following World War II, Japanese industrialists looked at the Ford model and realized, there's just no way this works for us. Japan was facing severe resource constraints and a highly fragmented domestic market. They simply couldn't rely on massive economies of scale or capital-intensive systems. They desperately needed an entirely new approach, something highly flexible and deeply efficient, just to survive. And out of that sheer necessity came this brilliant concept, Jidoka. Translated into English, it's often called automation, and it became one of the foundational pillars of the Toyota production system. Now, unlike blind automation, where a machine just keeps pumping out defective parts until someone finally unplugs it, Jidoka refers to machines that are actually built to detect problems and intelligently stop themselves the exact moment an issue arises. The heart of Jidoka can be summed up beautifully with one phrase: automation with a human touch. It completely relieves workers from the mind-numbing burden of just standing around supervising a machine trying to catch errors. Instead, it gives employees the ultimate power to halt the production line the second they detect an issue. It allows them to use their actual human intelligence for value-adding problem solving. To really ground this idea, let's look at where it actually started. Decades before Toyota ever made cars, they made looms. The Toyota Type G automatic loom, commercialized back in 1926 by Sakichi Toyoda, perfected this exact mechanism. It had this brilliant auto-stop function. If just one single weft or warp yarn broke, the machine stopped immediately. It didn't churn out yards of ruined fabric. It stopped, asked for human intervention, and ensured quality right there at the source.
But hey, stopping the machine is really only half the battle. You still have to fix the actual problem, right? Sakichi Toyoda's commitment to fixing things permanently led to the famous 5 whys technique. When a line stops, you don't just put a band-aid on the symptom. You ask why, recursively. You ask it 5 times if you have to, diving deeper and deeper past the surface until you discover the true root cause. Because once you fix the root cause, the problem never happens again.
This marks a complete paradigm shift in how we think about quality. In traditional mass production, quality is just an outcome. You build the product and then you check it at the end to see if it's actually any good. But with Jidoka, quality is a factor built directly inside the production process. You can't simply inspect quality into a product at the finish line. You absolutely must engineer it into every single step. When you compare these two giant leaps in industrial engineering side by side, you see fundamentally different frameworks. The Fordist model is a push system driven by mechanical pacing, treating its workers like specialized cogs. In stark contrast, the Toyota production system is a pull system. It's focused entirely on continuous material flow, and it directly empowers its workforce to act as active problem solvers. All of these concepts build the foundation of the famous TPS house diagram. Lean is often visualized as a house. The incredibly strong pillars holding it up are just-in-time and Jidoka, and this stable foundation is standardization and workflow leveling. But the interior? That is all about human empowerment and Kaizen, which means continuous improvement. A weakness in any single component, but especially in that human interior, makes the entire production system incredibly fragile. So why does all of this matter to us today outside the walls of a car factory? Because these principles have completely migrated from highly repetitive factory environments right onto our modern, unpredictable construction job sites. We translate this lean philosophy through powerful methodologies like the last planner system, target value design, and relational contracting. These are the tools that help us manage workflow, cut waste, and build in quality on incredibly complex infrastructure projects where no 2 days are ever the same. Let's summarize our key takeaways from this explainer. Henry Ford absolutely revolutionized global scale and structural efficiency, but his rigid push system maximized human fatigue and eventually hit an evolutionary wall. Jidoka flipped the script. It integrated human intelligence directly back into the machinery, shifting quality from a simple end-of-line inspection to an in-process guarantee. Ultimately, lean methodologies thrive not just because they eliminate waste, but because they empower the people actually doing the work. As we wrap up today, I really want to leave you with a provocative thought regarding your own operations. If our physical machines are now smart enough to stop when they detect a flaw, are our modern management systems and cultures empowering enough to let our people do the exact same thing without fear? It's a question every single leader must ask themselves. Thank you so much for joining me today on Bodhi Unified Flow. It has been an absolute pleasure unpacking this vital slice of industrial history with you. Here are the rigorously researched references that formed the foundation for today's explainer. Keep questioning the process, keep empowering your teams, and I will see you next time.